Welcome to The Business of Family, the podcast where we explore the stories, challenges, and opportunities of family businesses. I'm your host, Tammy Buss, and I'm a family business survivor and also a family business advisor. In this show, we will be talking with family business leaders and experts to bring you insights and inspiration so you too can survive your family business journey. Whether you're a founder, a successor, a professional, or just curious about family businesses, this podcast is for you. So today we have Marcia Barnes on. So Marcia is the founder and CEO of Valve+Meter Performance Marketing. And I tell you, this woman knows a thing or two about growth. Over 14 years working with Defender, she actually grew the company from 2 million to annual revenues of over 400 million. And so this woman has made a career out of transforming businesses through profitable marketing programs. And also, she's the author of Here We Grow. So thank you for joining us today, Marcia.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
I tell you, you've got quite a bio. And of course, our podcasts are only about 25 minutes long. So I can't even go through everything you've accomplished over your career. But I'm sure we'll touch base on a few things as we're going along. So as you know, we are a family business advisor. We work with first and second generation businesses, helping them plan their first transition. So marketing is such an important element to any business, not let alone a family business. So what does marketing really mean? Because that's a big term, right? So what does marketing really mean for a family business?
It depends on the family business, I guess, and people's interpretations. But marketing in general is the combination of how we talk about our brand, who we talk to about our brand, finding our brand voice, the look and feel of the brand. And it's the brand all the way through every business process. I mean, you can get really in depth with the scope of what marketing is. All the way through to the advertising, the tactics and campaigns where you're running ads and getting business from that. So it's anything you're doing to create enthusiasm to engage in and participate in the goods and services you're providing, I think would be a solid definition for the way a family should think about a brand.
Yeah. And when we think about marketing and having read your book, and I got so many points in here, I'm not sure what I want to talk about first, but, one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting, was, looking at marketing, making it a profit center. Because I think most companies see marketing as just a pure cost.
Right.
And I can probably say that I'm one of the guilty ones that, early in my career, I mean, I'm in business for 40 years, but earlier on, it was more of a costing rather than a way to build profit. So, let's go back and talk about that with the sort of the importance of marketing to really any business, but and how do you even start?
Well, one thing I should be clear about, sometimes you think of marketing as a cost center because it is.
Yes.
Marketing that is not aligned with getting results or hitting the right formula to produce a return, that can end up as a cost center. And then sometimes we feel like we're paying bills and it's costing us things that we haven't seen come into fruition.
Right.
But is it building to something that's going to happen in the future? Mm-hmm. We don't want our future to be forever, right? We want to have some place where that ship is landing. But, it can be a cost center if it's not planned for correctly. Mm-hmm. The cost of marketing is relative to the results, right? Marketing can seem expensive, but if it's driving the right results,
right,
then that's the outcome that you're looking for. And there's some nuances in it that I think business people miss, maybe by nature of the way that we're educated in business. I came into marketing without a formal marketing education. Mm-hmm. So did my boss, and we grew a company from 0 to over 400 million in revenue. Then the primary way we did that was through marketing. Mm-hmm. But the approach was marketing based on a math platform. I think the way that businesses buy marketing is broken and the way agencies sell marketing is broken. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to reorient those two things together. So the brokenness on the marketing, or on the business side, is you tend to assign a budget to marketing. Mm-hmm. And now your marketing leader is planning on spending that budget. and they're checking some boxes on, I'm going to do some mail, I'm going to do some TV, I'm going to do some billboards, I'm going to do some social media, and they're kind of checking a list of things that they feel like in their business would define success. And really what they've done is they've made a spending plan, not a marketing plan. And they're hoping that it gets as good or better results than it did the prior year. If you reorient that to thinking of it as, I have an unlimited budget for marketing that works. So I'm going to track what the return is on everything that I can track. Not all marketing can be trackable directly, but I'm going to track the return, and I'm going to buy all of what I know is working. And that being in that power of your spend is an incredible spot to be.
Right. And I think, again, you're back to what is the purpose of it? What are you trying to achieve with the marketing? Right. In terms of am I selling the product? What am I trying to do? But I did think it was interesting in your book when you talk about, and I think this is scary when you say unlimited budget. But when you read the book, you understand why. Because if it's working, why wouldn't you just put more money towards it as opposed to something that doesn't work? However, you do talk about, to be able to test your marketing and the different elements, and that 80% of your tests are going to fail. But it's that 20% that's going to really generate the revenue and go from that, zero-based company to 400 million by doing what works. So that's the importance is spending the money wisely, I guess, and picking the right things. But how do you go in and sort of help people understand, or you shift, like you're trying to change the way people look at marketing and the way people spend their dollars. So what's the first thing that you would do as a company if you were called in?
Well, I think all good marketing has to start with solid strategy work. I'm a big fan of a book called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy by Richard Ramel. And he defines good strategy as making a healthy diagnosis of where your goals are and what you're trying to do with your business, and what the bottlenecks or problems are preventing you from getting there, the obstacles. And then after you have that diagnosis, you need guiding policies in place that will take the strategy through to completion, and a coherent set of tactics that will deliver that result. So those three components: diagnosis, guiding policy, and set of coherent actions. So a diagnosis, like the first place I start is I do a free marketing assessment for clients that are thinking about hiring a marketing agency to get an idea of what's going on and do they have a problem I can solve. And then I pull that. If that looks good and the client wants to hire us, then the first work we do is the strategy development. And we're shaping that strategy around things like an unlimited budget for marketing that works, data-driven decisions, math before marketing, test then scale. These are guiding policies that can hold the whole of the marketing program together. And then sorting out, you can't do everything. That's one of the problems today. Marketing has bifurcated in so many different channels and ways of going about it, that if you try to put a little bit of money in everything, you'll get no result, right?
Yeah.
So you have to focus on what are the 3 to 5 things that are the most likely to work in the least amount of time with the least amount of risk, and go after those 3 to 5 targets. And then what works out of that, you're scaling, and then you pick up your next test.
So that's that testing. So test them, see if it's working. So let's go back to the math before marketing, because you talk about that a lot. I think that's the premise of everything you're doing, is to make sure that, it's going to work and you're going to get your money out. But can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
And your, how you come up with the numbers and the, I think it's a ROMs, I think you call it.
Yeah, return on marketing spend.
Yeah.
So we believe at Valve+Meter that the key performance indicator of marketing is not likes and clicks and followers and traffic, organic traffic, keywords on page 1, direct mail open rates, email open rates, beautiful work completed on time. All of these have a place in the guiding a plan, more in that set of coherent actions. But the key performance indicator of marketing is return on marketing spend. How much revenue did I get back for every dollar that I spent on marketing? As much of that as I can track. And once we have that with the tracking, I should say to Tammy, even a lot of people try to track by using cost per lead. That can be deceptive because some leads are cheap but difficult to close.
Right.
Some are expensive, but they close all the time and for high dollar amounts. So you've got to go back to revenue return on marketing spend.
Mm-hmm. I did read that. I thought that was fascinating because I'm thinking, yeah, but when you look at your math, you go, well, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Right. That you, and why you get unlimited, because the thing scared me the first time I read unlimited budget. I'm like, whoa. But when you read that, you say unlimited, but what works? So if you look at how many dollars you bring in where every dollar spent, of course, if you're pulling in way more than you're spending, why wouldn't you have unlimited?
Right.
Right. Based on capacity that your company can handle. But anyway, talk a little bit more about that math before marketing.
Well, it reminded me of a client that we've had for several years. The first time we met, and I showed him the concept of unlimited. I have an unlimited budget for marketing that works. He said, I have waited my entire life to meet a woman like you. And I said, Lance, no one on Match.com has ever said that to me. And, Lance he's met the math over the years, and their business has grown and they do really good work with that. But what happens is a lot of times we're showing up with marginal data, what I call vanity metrics, vanity charts. They look pretty. They show things going up. And you're sitting there going, but we're not growing or we're not generating profit, and trying to figure that out. So you've got to have that revenue return on marketing spend tracking in place. Now, what that means is you take the revenue that the revenue that you've created that's attributable to a marketing campaign, and then divide it by the cost of that campaign, and that'll give you a number that is your return. So if I spent $1,000 on Google AdWords and I got $10,000 of revenue in, that's a 10-to-1 return on marketing spend. Unlikely to hit that in Google AdWords, but that just as a math example.
But assuming, then that's worth it, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So having that tracking in place is important. Also, if there are sometimes this needs to be customized a bit for your application. If there are wide variances in gross profit, gross margin percentage by your different lines of business or types of product that you sell, you may need to measure gross profit return on marketing spend instead of revenue return on marketing spend. But for most businesses, revenue return on marketing spend works pretty solid.
What I loved about, talking about the book is the flywheel and how you want to try things and how you want to keep things going that are working. But I also love the fact when you're talking about hiring a marketing agency and how the diverse skills, but also about onboarding them, because maybe you're not large enough to have your own marketing department, but you need to outsource it. But to onboard them like you would an employee, and to set the expectations, because I think we're all, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we want the results to be today. And what I thought was very good is how you explain about the setting expectations and onboarding your marketing firm just like you would an employee. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, and even I think in the interviewing process, when you're choosing to hire that agency, sometimes I'll sit back and I'll think, now, if I were applying for the job of director of digital marketing in their business, and I was on an interview, I don't think that the person in the interview would say 4 or 5 times, well, I've been burnt by this position before. I've been burnt by people like you before. We just take this whole different perspective. Now, I'm sure you've been burnt by some people, and I think you have to hire an agency like you would hire a team member, because you're actually hiring, like in our case, you're hiring the whole of a team, right? We kind of function as a fractional marketing department for you. So you would interview in a way similar to the way you interview an employee. You're probably going to go deeper on what can I expect you to deliver and what are you committing to and things like that with an agency than you could an employee. But that's one part of it. And then secondly, just in the onboarding process, you would never bring somebody in their first 90 days and be yelling about the results, right? You would want a 90-day plan that the two of you have created together, and you're marching against that plan to get an objective accomplished at a future date, right?
Right.
But that easily goes out the window when bills start getting paid, but yet we pay payroll happily, even though both may have a bad result for a while,
Isn't that true? Yes.
Right. And then from there, it's about developing that vendor the same. I say this about all vendors, whether it's your marketing agency or not. One of the reasons that I've had a very successful career has been because I saw my vendors as team members. So my journey into marketing included merging a company that I owned with another company, and then taking the job of director of marketing. And at that time, we worked everything through. I was buying marketing. I was a marketing buyer, really, if I look back at it. So I had, maybe 5 or 6 vendors that we were buying marketing from. Now, I had just gone from leading 200 people in my own business to joining this bigger business. And now I don't have anybody reporting to me. So maybe it was that I had to use those leadership chops somewhere. But I just started sharing the goals and talking to people the same way I would with an employee I was coaching. And I would say things like, so listen, vendor partner, Clyde, whoever. Clyde, I've got an unlimited budget for marketing that works. So their ears will perk up,
Ooh, unlimited. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
Right. Our goal is to acquire a new customer here and spend no more than $350 per new customer doing that. Now, when I look at your program, you're at $450. How could we get that down to $350? I'm not asking you to cut your price. I'm saying, what could we do to get more efficient so that I can hit my $350? And so then we would work together to create some ideas around that. And sometimes that would be a price change, but it would be a reduction in price to get me to expand a working program to a new market, right? There were incentives for them. But those vendors went to work on creating solutions then. Now they came in solving problems for me instead of selling me things.
Right.
They solved a problem, and now I can freely buy it because my problem is solved, and that's my track to revenue. Mm-hmm. And Tammy, marketing companies, big marketing companies, Valpak, AT&T Yellow Pages. This is back when it was still Yellow Pages. Now, for your younger listeners that listen on podcasts, the Yellow Pages is what your grandmother used to have you sit on in order to reach the Thanksgiving table.
Absolutely. They used to be quite large. Yeah. And sometimes in the cities, there'd be the white pages and the yellow pages. You get double.
Yeah. And they'd be 3 or 4 inches thick, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And but anyway, those companies, big national players, were inventing new products to sell us. And they were doing innovative things like, well, if you're hitting the return on marketing spend with this investment you're making in the Atlanta Yellow Pages, what if we put a sticker for your service on the front of the Yellow Pages when we deliver it to all of the Atlanta market? Wouldn't that work better than an ad that's on the inside of the book? And so we tested that, and heck yeah, it worked really good.
So if you were a family business, and again, family businesses can be any size. They can be small or large, but we tend to be trying to think of ways to, maybe you need to increase the size of the business for revenue because you're trying to plan a succession or transition, and you need to grow the business. And again, marketing always comes off as a cost initially until you look at it from your angle. It's like, this is a way to generate. What are some simple things or some simple questions perhaps that a family business could ask a marketing agency, or like, how do you even start? Because, maybe you've just had somebody in-house who's been doing some social media or, on your website, or, a few things on LinkedIn. How do you even start a conversation to say, if I can see having an unlimited budget, if it's going to work, right? How do we even start that conversation with, or interview marketing companies?
Well, there's probably some sort of a first step that an agency is taking to do an assessment, and kind of give a diagnosis on where you're at and where you need to go. Just like you would in a job interview to figure out if somebody knows what they're talking about or not. But one thing I would say, even about job interviews, I find the best practice is decide what it is I'm looking for before I start talking to people.
Right. So
And
go
then,
back and say, what are we trying to do? This is what
yeah,
we're trying to do from a company perspective. Here
right.
you go, marketing agency. Would you go to something like, we need to grow by, X amount of dollars, or we need to grow by percentage, or expand into a new market? Like, what is it that the business should have prepared prior to going into those interviews?
And sometimes that's work that we're helping people with in strategy formation too.
Okay.
But you probably have something caused you to pick the phone up to call an agency or to make a change, right? And what is it that's causing that? So there's probably 3 to 5 things that are your pain points or what you're picturing in the future. So a revenue number is a goal. It's not necessarily a strategy.
Right.
You need more context than that. You can set a revenue goal, but we've got to have marketing spending at the rate to hit that revenue goal too. So there's some deep planning and math that need to go into that. I would say get a clear line of sight on your top 5 things you're looking for in an agency.
What would that one piece of advice you'd say, okay, if nothing else, start with this?
I would get my brand and communication strategy correct. Until your family members can do the elevator pitch, you're probably not quite ready to do much of anything else.
Good advice.
Yeah.
So we're at the end of our show, but I wonder, is there anything else you'd like to mention that we haven't covered yet?
Sure. I think I've seen in my career, Tammy, many transitions from as marketing has matured or developed over the years. We saw Yellow Pages become very big. We saw direct mail modeling get really big. And we remember network TV, and now there's 100 different TV stations. And then the internet came along, and then digital marketing, and then Google, and now we're in this world of AI. You just be really careful on what people call AI and how they're using it. Mm-hmm. I'll go back to test. Everything's worthy of a test.
Right.
In the book, there's a marketing opportunity assessment that you can download, and it's got a set of questions that you can answer about what you're thinking of spending money on, mm-hmm. and it'll kind of guide you through, is that a good idea or not? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would go there, but I think
that's right, because at the end of each chapter, you actually have a code that's their information there that you can download. Yeah. So it's very good.
Lots of great tools. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming on. And again, it's Here We Grow, the marketing formula to 10 times your business and transform your future. So thank you very much for coming on today, and we'll talk soon.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Business Family Podcast. I'm Steve Beauchesne from Beau's Brewery and now Family Enterprise Canada. Until next time, keep it in the family.
If you like this episode, subscribe to the Business of Family podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can also find Blue Roots on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. On the next show, I'll be back with another amazing guest who will inspire you with their family business insights. Until then, take care and keep it in the family. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, tax, investment, or insurance advice. Before acting on any advice, please contact your personal or company advisors.